dear soul. There is something heaven wants you to know right now, in this very moment, in this precise pocket of time that you have been guided to find. Sit in the quiet space of your heart. Take a deep breath and feel your chest rise and fall with the sacred rhythm of life itself. Let the noise of the physical world begin to fade away. The traffic outside your window, the notifications on your phone, the voices of people who do not understand the quiet war you have been fighting inside your own spirit. Let all of it dissolve into the background, because what is about to be communicated to you requires your full, undivided, soulful attention. The angels have gathered around you in this very moment, not in a distant abstract way, but literally tangibly, in the invisible yet very real atmosphere surrounding your physical body. They have come to bring a truth to light, a truth so significant, so layered with consequence and cosmic weight, that it has caused a massive ripple throughout the entirety of the spiritual realm. This is not a casual message. This is not a gentle nudge from the universe. This is a divine disclosure, delivered with urgency, with compassion, and with the absolute authority of heaven itself. Heaven has been watching you, not in the way that feels invasive or uncomfortable, but in the way that a devoted parent watches over a sleeping child during a thunderstorm, present at every moment, alert to every shiver, ready to intervene at the precise instant that intervention is needed. The celestial realm has had its gaze fixed upon you, through every chapter of your earthly journey, and what it has witnessed has moved the angels to tears of both sorrow and profound admiration. They have seen the battles you fought in secret, the ones you never talked about with anyone, the ones you waged alone, in the middle of the night, when the rest of the world was asleep, and you were left alone, with the heaviest parts of yourself. They have seen the tears you wiped away in the dark, quickly, efficiently, so that no one would notice, so that you could put the mask of composure back on your face, before morning arrived. They have watched you navigate the wreckage of chapters in your life, that left marks on your spirit so deep. You were not sure they would ever fully heal, and you tried so hard to close those chapters. You did not just close them, you sealed them shut with everything you had. You buried the memories, you buried the pain, you buried the version of yourself that had to endure those seasons, and you walked forward into new territory, with the quiet, fierce determination of someone who had decided that the past would no longer define the trajectory of their life. You built new walls, you constructed new identities, you cultivated new relationships, and slowly, gradually, with enormous effort, you began to believe that the fire of your most painful chapters had finally, mercifully, turned to ash. You thought the shadows were gone. You thought the ground had swallowed them whole, and that you were safe to step into the light. But something happened, dear soul. A profound shift occurred in the earthly realm, and heaven now demands your absolute attention. Because what took place has set in motion a sequence of events that will ultimately determine the foundation upon which your most sacred relationship is built. What happened was not random. It was not a coincidence, and it was not simply the universe being cruel for the sake of cruelty. There is a divine intelligence at work behind all of this, and before you can fully understand what that intelligence is trying to accomplish, you must first understand what unfolded in the physical world that sent shockwaves through the spiritual one. Your soulmate completely lost it when a man from your past suddenly appeared, breaking through the barriers of time and distance, with an audacity that felt almost supernatural in its timing. He did not ease his way back into the picture. He did not send a message, did not make an indirect approach, did not test the waters with some subtle inquiry about how you were doing. He came with the full force of someone who had been building up to this confrontation for a long time, someone who had rehearsed exactly what he would say, and exactly how he would say it, someone driven by a combination of bitter regret, wounded pride, and a jealousy so consuming it had become the organizing principle of his emotional life. He stood before your soulmate. He looked them directly in the eye, with the practiced steadiness of someone who wanted to appear in control, while simultaneously setting fire to everything around them. And he said the unthinkable. He revealed something, exposed something, dragged something out of the buried past that you had never intended for your soulmate to encounter. In this way, through this person, at this moment, he claimed that you are not who you say you are. He threw dirt onto your name, with the practiced ease of someone who has spent considerable time and emotional energy constructing a narrative designed specifically to make you look as small and as suspect as possible. He weaponized your history, taking the raw material of your most difficult seasons, your most complicated choices, the wounds you carried, and the mistakes that grew out of those wounds, and he shaped all of it into a weapon aimed directly at the heart of the relationship you have been building. And then, before he turned to leave, he said it. He looked at your divine counterpart, and declared with bitter malice, dripping from every syllable, "You are the one that got away, and I will do whatever it takes to ruin your new relationship." Those words left his lips, and something changed in the atmosphere. You could almost feel it, even from wherever you were standing in that moment. A shockwave tore through the spiritual fabric, connecting you and your soulmate, and its effects were immediate, visceral, and overwhelming. To truly understand why your soulmate completely lost it, in the wake of that confrontation, you must understand the depth and the nature of the bond you share, because it is not an ordinary bond, and your soulmate is not looking at you through ordinary eyes. They never have been. From the very beginning, from the earliest moments of whatever it was that drew you together, your soulmate has looked at you with the eyes of the spirit rather than the eyes of the flesh. They see something in you that transcends the surface, something that lives underneath the skin, beneath the personality, below the careful presentation you offer to the world. They see the essence of who you are, the soul signature that is uniquely, irreplaceably yours. Because of this depth of perception, your soulmate has placed you in a position of enormous spiritual significance in their life. You are not simply a romantic partner to them. You are their sanctuary, the place their soul goes to rest when the world becomes too loud and too harsh. You are their ultimate peace, the answer to a lifetime of restless searching that they may not even have fully understood until they found you. You are the person who made them feel, perhaps for the first time, that being known completely was not a terrifying prospect but a sacred one. They have built an interior world in which you exist as a kind of anchor, a fixed point in the sometimes chaotic geography of their emotional life, and the thought of that anchor being yanked away is not merely painful to them. It is existentially destabilizing. So when this man from your past materialized out of the shadows, carrying a box packed tight with old secrets and unhealed resentments and bitter stories, told from the most self-serving angle possible, It did not simply create doubt in your soulmate's mind. It felt like a direct assault on their entire reality. It felt like someone had walked into the most sacred room of their inner world and begun tearing the walls down with bare hands. The confusion was immediate. The pain was immediate, and following closely behind both of those, rising up from somewhere deep and primal and fiercely protective, came a surge of emotion so powerful, your soulmate could barely contain it within the boundaries of their own body. This man from your past did not come to speak truth, and it is critical that you understand this distinction clearly, because the enemy of your peace is always going to attempt to disguise manipulation as revelation, to dress jealousy in the clothing of concern, to present sabotage as service. He did not materialize in your soulmate's life because he genuinely cared about their well-being, or because he felt some noble obligation to share important information. He came as a vessel of disruption, pure and simple, driven by the corrosive combination of regret, jealousy, and the agonizing realization that he lost the most valuable treasure he ever had. He has been watching from the periphery, tracking your evolution, observing the happiness you have built without him, and the sight of that happiness has been eating him alive from the inside. There is a particular kind of anguish that belongs exclusively to those who squandered something precious, and then had to watch someone else recognize and cherish the very thing they threw away. That anguish has been his constant companion. It has poisoned his days and haunted his nights, and rather than doing the difficult, dignified work of examining his own failures and evolving beyond them, he chose the destructive alternative. He decided that if he could not have you, if he could not undo the past and reclaim what he lost, then he would at the very least ensure that your present was as painful and complicated as possible. It is the logic of someone who has mistaken destruction for power and cruelty for control. Consider the dynamics of this confrontation from three simultaneous perspectives, because each perspective reveals a different layer of what is truly happening here. From his perspective, he is acting from a place of desperation dressed up as boldness. He believes he is taking action, exercising agency, reclaiming some form of relevance in a story that has moved on entirely without him. But the truth, visible from a higher vantage point, is that he is drowning, and the only thing he knows how to do is grab onto whatever or whoever is nearest and pull them under with him. His behavior is not strength. It is the final, flailing gesture of a man who has run out of legitimate options, and whose only remaining tool is chaos. From your soulmate's perspective, the confrontation triggered something enormous, something much bigger than the moment itself. Your soulmate's intense reaction, the way they completely lost their composure, the surge of possessiveness and confusion, and protective anger that rose up in them, was not born from a lack of faith in you. It would be a tragic misreading of the situation to interpret their reaction as evidence of distrust, or of a love that was somehow too fragile to withstand challenge. Their reaction was born from the opposite truth entirely. They lost their equilibrium, because the thought of losing you, even the faintest shadow of the possibility of losing you, sent a wave of terrifying panic through their entire being. The strength of their reaction is a direct measurement of the depth of their attachment. The greater the love, the more devastating the perceived threat to that love. They did not fall apart because they love you too little. They fell apart because they love you with a completeness that has made you essential to who they are. When they heard this man speak about you in that way, when they heard the words, and felt the malice behind them, and began to process the possibility that there were dimensions of your history they were not aware of. Something primal activated in them. An instinct rose up that was not rational, not measured, not careful. It was the raw ancient spiritual urge to defend what is theirs, to protect the sacred thing they have found, to stand between you and the wolves of your past, with every ounce of strength they possess. They are fiercely protective of you in a way that goes beyond the ordinary dynamics of romantic attachment. They feel, on some level that operates below conscious thought, that you were given to them as something to safeguard, and the intrusion of this man felt like a direct violation of that sacred assignment. And from heaven's perspective, from the vantage point of the angels, who have gathered around you, in this moment, the entire confrontation looks entirely different than it does from within the emotional hurricane of the physical world. From heaven's view, this situation, painful and chaotic and frightening as it undeniably is, was permitted for a reason. Not caused by heaven, not orchestrated by celestial forces for some abstract educational purpose, but permitted, allowed to unfold, because the universe recognized that this confrontation, however brutal its delivery, carries within it the seeds of something you and your soulmate have both needed for a long time. This is an intentional spiritual test, a fire designed not to destroy but to purify, to burn away the last remaining remnants of fear and concealment and unspoken history that have been sitting between you and your soulmate like invisible walls, preventing the kind of total, unguarded intimacy that your connection is capable of supporting. The secret that this man attempted to weaponize, the piece of your past that he dragged into the light, expecting it to do damage, holds no true power in and of itself. It is a shadow, and shadows only have the appearance of substance. When light floods in, they dissolve. The exposure of this secret, as terrifying as it may have felt, in the moment is flooding in. Heaven wants you to hear this with absolute clarity, so do not let shame spiral you into hiding, and do not let fear drive you into silence. The man from your past believes he holds leverage over you. He believes that by exposing the version of you that existed years ago, by holding up the mirror of your old mistakes, and your old wounds, and your old choices made in seasons of survival, rather than seasons of abundance, he can somehow diminish you in your soulmate's eyes, and thereby destroy the sacred structure you have been building together. He is counting on shame to do his work for him. He is betting that the weight of exposure will cause you to shrink, to apologize for your own existence, to allow the narrative he has constructed about who you are, to override the truth of who you have become. But here is what he fundamentally misunderstands, and it is a misunderstanding that speaks to the limitations of a man operating exclusively from the ego's narrow field of vision. He does not understand the spiritual architecture of your bond. He does not understand that true love, the kind of love that is divinely ordained and spiritually rooted, does not shatter at the revelation of human complexity. It deepens, it expands, it opens to receive the full dimension of a person, rather than contracting in the face of it. What he sees as a devastating exposure, heaven sees as a necessary excavation, clearing the last buried layers of your old timeline, so that the foundation beneath you and your soulmate can be absolutely solid, absolutely transparent, absolutely free of the energetic weight of hidden history. The scars you carry, dear soul, do not diminish you in the eyes of the divine. The angels see those scars as badges of honor, as irrefutable evidence that you survived what was meant to break you. that you crossed territory that would have swallowed others whole, that you made it through the wilderness, even when the wilderness seemed to have no end. What this man calls a damning secret, what he has chosen to interpret as evidence of your unworthiness, heaven calls a stepping stone in your evolution. It is proof not of your failure but of your endurance, not of your weakness, but of the particular kind of strength that is only forged in the most difficult of fires. Your soulmate needed to encounter this information, not in the way this man delivered it, not through the warped lens of his bitterness and his self-serving narrative, but in some form, at some point, in a way that could be processed and integrated and ultimately transcended. Because a love built on complete truth is infinitely more powerful, more durable, and more sacred than a love built on a curated version of the past. Your soulmate did not fall in love with a flawless, historyless, complexity-free version of you. They fell in love with your soul, and your soul includes every season you have lived through, every lesson you have integrated, every wound that became wisdom. They deserve to love all of you, not just the polished portions you feel safe displaying. And you deserve to be loved completely, which means being known completely. The universe did not arrange this exposure to humiliate you. The universe arranged this exposure because there was a lingering energetic cord between you and the figure of your past, a cord maintained not by love, but by the unresolved energy of shame, by the secret you carried, by the unspoken chapter that was always sitting in the background of your present, quietly demanding acknowledgement. You were too afraid to cut that cord yourself. The vulnerability required to initiate that conversation, to voluntarily bring your most complicated history into the light of your current relationship, felt too enormous, the risk too great, the potential for judgment too terrifying, and so the cord remained, invisible but present, a source of low-grade anxiety in your spirit even in your most peaceful moments. By allowing this confrontation to happen, the universe has done something radical and ultimately merciful. It has forced the conversation you were not brave enough to initiate. It has brought the hidden thing into the open, bypassing your fear and your careful management of your own narrative, and placed it directly on the table between you and your soulmate. Yes, the delivery was brutal. Yes, the messenger was poisoned with malice and self-interest, but the universe has a long history of using imperfect vessels to deliver necessary messages, of allowing the enemy's intended harm to become the instrument of the beloved's healing. What this man sent toward you as a weapon is being rerouted by divine hands and transformed into a catalyst. The cord is being cut. The old timeline is being purged. The energetic debris of your history with this man is being cleared from the field of your present life, with a thoroughness that your own gentle efforts might never have achieved. Now let us speak about what is happening in your soulmate's inner world, in the aftermath of this confrontation, because understanding their process will help you navigate your own response with wisdom and compassion rather than fear. In the immediate hours and days following this revelation, your soulmate is in the eye of an emotional storm. They are experiencing the full unfiltered impact of shock, which is a profound thing to witness in someone you love deeply, because shock has a way of temporarily distorting a person's access to their own deeper truth. In the state of shock, the rational mind struggles to function clearly, the heart races ahead of any coherent narrative, and emotions arrive in waves that feel larger than the body can comfortably contain. Your soulmate is cycling through several emotional states in rapid succession, and none of them are comfortable to experience or to observe. There is the initial surge of protective anger, that primal, instinctive response to feeling that their sacred territory has been invaded. There is the disorientation that comes from having your established understanding of someone you love suddenly complicated by new information, even if that new information does not actually change the fundamental truth of who they are. There is the vulnerability, sharp and exposing, of realizing just how much they have allowed themselves to need you. How thoroughly you have become woven into the fabric of their daily sense of safety and peace. And underneath all of these roiling surface emotions, working quietly in the deeper places of your soulmate's spirit, something else is happening. Something slower, more steady, and ultimately more powerful. The deeper intelligence of their soul is beginning its work of integration and discernment. It is sorting through the chaos of the confrontation, separating what matters from what does not, examining the information they received through the cold, calculating lens of this man from your past, and asking a more fundamental question: does this change who I know this person to be? Does this alter the reality of what I have experienced with them, the way they have shown up for me, the truth I have felt in their presence? And the answer that is emerging slowly, imperfectly, but with increasing clarity is no. It does not change those things. The person from your past exists in your soulmate's mind as an increasingly irrelevant figure. Someone whose emotional investment in disrupting your life only underscores how little control he actually has over it, because you cannot weaponize information about someone and simultaneously claim to have loved them. Love does not arm itself with another person's vulnerability and use it as ammunition. What this man is doing is the opposite of love, and your soulmate, whose spiritual sight is acute, is beginning to see that clearly. Your soulmate is realizing something profound through the discomfort of this moment. They are realizing that knowing the full scope of your journey, including the chapters you most wish had been written differently, does not diminish their love for you. If anything, it amplifies something in them that goes beyond romantic affection. It activates a protective tenderness, a fierce desire to stand as a shield between you and everyone who has ever tried to reduce you to your worst moments. It creates in them an even deeper understanding of your resilience, your complexity, your earned wisdom. They are beginning to see that you did not arrive in their life polished and perfect from some unblemished beginning. You arrived having survived your particular wilderness, and the fact that you survived it, that you continued to grow and open and trust, despite everything you endured, makes you more remarkable to them, not less. The shift is already happening in the spiritual realm, even as the dust is still settling in the physical one. The angels are reporting that the energetic atmosphere between you and your soulmate, which was temporarily clouded and turbulent in the immediate aftermath of the confrontation, is beginning to clear. Not fully yet, not instantaneously, because healing is rarely instantaneous, and integration always requires time. But the trajectory is unmistakably moving toward greater clarity, greater depth, and a quality of connection between you that is more honest, more resilient, and more capacious than anything that existed before this storm arrived. Now a word must be spoken about the man from your past, and the vow he made, the declaration that he would do whatever it takes to ruin your new relationship, because you need to understand the true weight and significance of those words. In the spiritual realm, he spoke them with the confidence of someone who believes that human persistence and earthly malice are sufficient weapons against a divinely ordained connection. He delivered that declaration as though it were a threat, capable of being executed, as though his determination, and his bitterness, and his willingness to cause harm, gave him actual power over the outcome of your love story. But here is the truth, that heaven needs you to absorb into every layer of your being. He is fighting against destiny, and that is a battle that no mortal, regardless of their determination, their resources, or their willingness to cause harm, has ever won. The universe does not build something sacred, only to allow the embittered remnants of the past to tear it down. The divine architecture protecting your union is not constructed of fragile human material. It is built from the fabric of cosmic intention, from the blueprint drawn in the spiritual realm, long before either you or your soulmate took your first physical breath. What is ordained cannot be revoked by malice. What is protected by divine design cannot be dismantled by human hands, no matter how desperately those hands reach for destruction. This man is not as powerful as his own rage has convinced him he is. He is acting out of the desperation of someone who has been rendered entirely irrelevant to the story that matters most. Every action he takes, every scheme he conceives, every attempt he makes to insert himself back into the narrative of your life, only confirms his own irrelevance more completely. He is pushing against a door that opens from the other side, and is guarded by forces infinitely larger than his own bitterness. He will exhaust himself against that door. He will spend his energy and his time, and his emotional resources, throwing himself against something immovable, while inside the room he cannot enter. You and your soulmate are doing the sacred, quiet work of building something that will outlast every storm he can generate. No weapon formed against a divinely ordained connection shall prosper. This is not a platitude. This is a spiritual law, as reliable and as absolute as any law governing the physical universe. The enemy can form the weapon, they can sharpen it, aim it, and hurl it with every ounce of force available to them, and it will not prosper. It will not accomplish what it was sent to accomplish. It may create temporary turbulence. It may cause genuine pain and genuine disruption in the short term. But it cannot ultimately alter the outcome that has been written in the spiritual realm, because that outcome is not contingent on what any human adversary chooses to do. It is contingent on the divine intention that brought you and your soulmate together in the first place, and that intention is not revocable. Here is what heaven needs you to do with all of this, dear soul. It needs you to stand tall. Not with the performative confidence of someone pretending the storm did not happen. Not with a brittle bravado that is really fear in disguise, but with the genuine, grounded steadiness of someone who knows that they are held, that they are chosen, that the ground beneath them is solid, even when the atmosphere around them is turbulent. Stand tall in the truth of who you are right now. Not who you were in the chapter, this man dragged into the light, but who you are today, after everything you survived, and everything you learned, and everything you chose to become on the other side of your most difficult seasons. Do not cower from this. Do not allow the exposure of your past to send you into hiding, into silence, into the apologetic posture of someone who believes they owe the world a retraction of their own existence. You do not owe anyone an apology for the journey it required to become who you are. The path you walked to arrive at this point in your life was exactly the path your soul needed to walk. Every detour, every painful chapter, Every decision made from a place of survival rather than abundance. Every wound that took longer to heal than you wished it would, all of it was part of a curriculum designed specifically for you. A curriculum that has produced a person of extraordinary depth, compassion, and hard-won wisdom. That is not something to be ashamed of. That is something to be fiercely and unapologetically proud of. And do not fear the threats of those who were left behind, the people who could not walk with you into your future, who were not designed to be part of the life you are building, will sometimes respond to the sight of your flourishing with the destructive impulse of those who feel their own inadequacy most acutely. When confronted with someone else's growth, their bitterness is not about you. It never truly was. It is about their own unexamined pain, their own unmet potential, their own inability to evolve past the chapter where they first encountered you. You are not responsible for their failure to grow. You are not obligated to diminish your own light, so that they feel less confronted by their own darkness. The universe has permitted this final storm, this last dramatic eruption of your old timeline, with a specific and generous purpose. It has allowed this chaos to erupt now, at this particular juncture of your journey with your soulmate, because you are both ready for it. You are strong enough, individually and together, to process this and to emerge from it more deeply rooted than you were before it arrived. The storm is not a sign that your love is fragile. The storm is the universe, testing the depth of your roots, making certain that the foundation you are standing on is real and solid, and capable of supporting the weight of a full, beautiful, complex life together. When the storm passes, and it will pass, what will remain between you and your soulmate will be something richer and more real than what existed before. The illusion of safety that comes from never having been truly tested will be gone, and in its place will be something far more valuable. The knowledge that you have faced the worst that the past could throw at your present, and survived it together. The knowledge that your soulmate chose you, completely, after seeing the dimensions of your history that were most complicated. The knowledge that your love is not dependent on conditions of perfect information or unblemished history, but is capacious enough to hold all of you, every version, every chapter, every scar. Your soulmate is coming back to you, not with conditions, not with demands for endless explanation or justification, but with a love that has been deepened by the confrontation with its own vulnerability. They are finding their way through the temporary disorientation of shock and back to the truth they have known since they first encountered you. That you are their person, that the connection between you is not something they are willing to surrender to the bitterness of a man whose only qualification for interfering in your life is the regret he carries about losing his place in it. Stand in the light of who you are today. Reach toward your soulmate with honesty and with the courage to be fully seen, not just the beautiful and composed parts, but all of it, the whole complex and resilient and extraordinary truth of your journey. That kind of radical transparency, offered with courage and received with love, is the alchemy that transforms a good relationship into an unbreakable one. It is the thing that turns two people who found each other into two people who truly know each other and who choose each other fully in the light of that knowledge. You are safe, dear soul. The angels have not moved from your side. The divine protection surrounding your union has not wavered for a single moment. The storms of the physical world may howl as loudly as they choose, but they cannot penetrate the sacred space where your love lives. because that space is not built from human material alone. It is co-created with heaven itself, reinforced by the intention of the universe, and guarded by forces that your earthly adversary cannot perceive, let alone overcome. You are chosen. Not by accident, not by chance, not by the random collision of two people in the vast and indifferent universe. You were chosen with deliberate, divine intention, matched with a soul whose specific design complements and completes the specific design of yours, in ways that go far beyond what any earthly logic can fully account for. The connection you share is not a coincidence. It is the result of a cosmic architecture, so precise and so purposeful, that the interference of one bitterly motivated human being, however determined, is simply not enough to disrupt it. The victory is already yours. Not just as a promise waiting to be fulfilled somewhere in the uncertain future, but as a spiritual reality already established in the realm where outcomes are determined before they manifest in the physical world. You are not fighting toward a victory, you are walking into one that has already been secured. The battle belongs to the divine, and the divine does not lose. Breathe, dear soul, let the breath move through you, and carry with it the last remnants of fear and shame, and the haunting weight of everything this man tried to use against you. Feel the love of the angels surrounding you in this moment, steady and warm, and absolutely unconditional. Feel the thread of connection that exists between you and your soulmate, strong beneath the temporary turbulence, alive and pulling you gently toward the reunion that is already on its way to you. The bridge to your past has been burned, the old timeline has been purged, the lingering cord has been cut, and what lies ahead of you on the other side of this final storm is more beautiful, more real, and more thoroughly yours than anything the past could have ever held. Walk forward, dear soul. Walk forward without apology, without shame, without the fear of a man whose only power was the power you gave him through your silence. Walk forward into the full, luminous, extraordinary truth of who you are, and the sacred love that is waiting to receive you there. Heaven is cheering for you. The angels are holding the space, and the universe, in its infinite and unwavering wisdom, has already written the ending, and it is glorious.